Okay, this video might make you angry or confused or maybe even motivated depending on where you land towards the end of this video. Because people who are dumber than you are making millions and probably more than you right now. I'm sure you've seen them here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, TikTok, and they have no degree from high school or college, right? They're kind of dumb, right? Not the brightest in the box, but yet they've made millions online with dropshipping or reselling, Amazon FBA, faceless YouTube, stocks, crypto, and nowadays some AI business, right? Some AI stuff. And you can just tell from their content, they're not that smart, right? Pretty low IQ, pretty dumb. Yet there seem to be God's chosen. They've won the lottery and make millions online with no job, no degree. And like, okay, this is kind of crazy. And I say this as someone who's kind of like you. I always did well in school, got good grades, got a degree from college. And I was one of those kids who could play games all night from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. midnight, go to sleep, wake up the next day for a 6 a.m. Class, do a test, get an A or at least a B+. And I would watch videos on YouTube with all this information and knowledge on all these topics, like business and marketing and sales and funnels and gaming and computers and tech, just all this knowledge. So by definition, I was a smart person. But I would always ask myself, okay, if I'm so smart, then why do I lack the success that these dumb people have? And if I'm so smart, then why can they make millions, but I make, less than, 5 figures a year? It just make no sense to me. And that would just send me spiraling because I become more envious of these people, more angry of their success that I lacked. And I would assume that, okay, my lack of success came from a lack of knowledge. There must be a secret that these dumb people know that I don't know. Therefore, let me watch more videos and learn more because I was assumed as a kid that my only advantage as a person was my intelligence. So if I'm losing, just learn more. But with more knowledge comes the same repeating question. If you're so smart, why aren't you successful? And why aren't you living the life that you want to live like all the dumb people that you see on YouTube or TikTok, Instagram doing? By the way, don't say they're scamming, they're cheating. I have ethics. Come on, right? We both know this cope. And we both know that is not true because a few years ago, back when dropshipping and starting an agency was hot, I would see guys who were dumber than me, start their first store or their first agency. And I always felt like, okay, I knew more than them when it came to tech and software and strategy. Like I could explain to you exactly how to, launch campaigns with ads, build a store, find the right product, or sign clients, do the marketing, do the funnels, the emails. I'm like, yeah, that to me, that's easy, right? I'm smart. It's easy to do. Whereas these guys had no idea what they were doing. Though I would still watch them from the sidelines, and of course, follow along their journey online. I'd watch them launch their store or agency, get their first clients or make their first sale, make their first $1,000, then $10,000, and eventually make their first million, while I was still at $0 in profit or any growth. And I would look back and compare them, once they made millions to them being a beginner from zero, and compare them, and I would realize it's still the same dumb person. The same dumb person who's just buying cars, buying watches, partying all the time, going to clubs, doing dumb shit. The same person. But now they've made millions and I'm still at zero. So I kind of realized that being smarter was never the answer. And intelligence does not equal getting rich or getting wealthy or being successful. And upon doing deep thinking and reflections, it was revealed to me that I had two big issues: fear of failure and self-doubt. I thought that if I pursued the same opportunities as these dumb people, that I would come across a challenge or obstacle that I couldn't solve. Therefore, I would fail and become a failure. But if I'm so smart, then why am I failing? And that kind of thinking just messes with your brain, where now you're afraid to do anything. You're afraid to take action or put yourself out there or do anything because you're afraid that if you do, you might fail. And that was me. So instead, I would just sit on the sidelines, right? And never play the game, never join them, just watch others who are dumber than me do things that I want to do, make millions and succeed. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just a loser is what it is. And I was stuck in this cycle of fear, failure, and self-doubt for a long time. Okay, and it cost me a lot because again, I knew all the tactics, strategies, on all these business models, drop shipping, reselling. I knew it all, but I was afraid to do anything because I'm like, okay, I might fail. If I fail, I'm a failure. And again, if I'm so smart, then why don't I have the life that I want to live? And that was my life for a long time until I met a mentor. Now, I use the word mentor here, not like a guru, course seller kind of way, but like a older adult male with, tons of wisdom and who knew more than me. Now, this mentor came from a completely different background than me. So as you can tell, obviously I'm Black, right? Also too, I'm an immigrant and my family was not rich. So the way I was raised was whenever I failed or made a mistake, that was GG, right? That was the end for me. And I was taught to be perfect to the T. Always plan, always prepare, always study. Because if you fail, you're also failing the family, grandparents, parents, the whole, surname. So I went through life always being cautious of my moves, my words, my actions, because again, fear of failure. And I made it my mission to acquire as much knowledge as I could to be smarter and prepared. Now that works in school. But in the real world, like life and business, yeah, that shit does not work. Now, my mentor Tim had a different view of failure where Tim would actually give me permission to fail. And Tim told me to, Kim, Kim, get it? So Tim said, Kim, fail fast. And pretty much my one job was to take action as fast as possible, fail fast, get data on what worked and what didn't work, optimize, and then move on to the next action. So action, data, optimize, repeat, action again, data, optimize, repeat. Now with Tim, I was helping him on a project to grow his e-commerce store called Big Tool Rack. And long story short, like the store grew from like $0 in sales to like over $1 million, in sales and getting featured on Fox News and all this, growth and success. And yeah, great stuff. But guess what? When I did that, I was so dumb. Okay. I knew nothing about e-commerce or marketing stores back then, but it didn't matter because I was in the arena, I was taking action, and I just learned as I grew along, which is when I realized this is how these dumb people are making millions. They're not smart, they're not lucky, they aren't scamming or, doing anything illegal. They just take action. They're out there in the arena, gaining experience and momentum to the point where success for them is almost guaranteed. And what you and I see as failure, they see as a chance to learn something new, and of course, gather more data to fix the problem. When you and I think this won't work, they think, how can I make this work? When you and I spend all this time, preparing and studying and learning all this, information, they just take action, right? They just go out there and do stuff because they know success loves speed. So it really makes you rethink what intelligence and, being smart really is, because these dumb people, they have success, they have the money, the lifestyle. So are they really that dumb? I don't know, but I will say that after, copying them and the way they think and act, like my success and results came, pretty soon. The client, the money, the lifestyle, it all came from copying people who were dumber than me. So I'll end this video with a question to you. If you are so smart, then why aren't you living the life that you want to live?